Why had the radios gone silent? Every head in the command center turned toward the comms desk, waiting for sound to break through the static. But there was nothing, just silence, heavy and crushing. Silence that told a story before anyone dared put it into words. Colonel Marcus Hayes leaned closer, the blue glow of the monitors washing over his weathered face. "Play it again." His voice was steady, but his jaw was locked in that hard line his men knew too well. The operator hit the button, and through the static came a voice, strained, desperate. X-ray 72 command, situation critical. 2 men down, heavy opposition on all sides. Request immediate. Then nothing, a transmission cut mid-breath. Around the room, the silence deepened. Everyone knew what it meant. The map on the wall lit up, a red dot deep inside a shaded zone. The Devil's Corridor, a canyon of stone and shadow in the Afghan mountains, a place that had earned its name the cruel way by swallowing men and aircraft alike. "Assets available for rescue?" Hayes asked, though the words tasted bitter. He already knew. "None, sir," his XO answered quietly. "Air Command declared it a no-fly zone. Even the drones are restricted." The colonel's eyes hardened. The weight of command meant calculating what you could not admit aloud. Sending help into that canyon was suicide. 7 aircraft lost in 18 months. Pilots refused to enter it. Anti-aircraft fire, unseen until it was too late. Death from above, from the sides, from the silence itself. SEAL Team 6, the best of the best, were trapped in there now, cut off, abandoned. A voice cut through the tension. Richard Harkins, retired colonel, 73 years old but sharp as broken glass. "So we're just going to leave them?" Hayes didn't answer right away. He didn't have to. The weight in the room said it all. Finally, he exhaled. "No pilot will fly into that death trap, and I can't order anyone to try." Harkins' eyes narrowed. Then, without another word, he turned and left. His stride wasn't fast, men his age didn't waste steps, but it was purposeful, like he already knew where he needed to go. Outside, the desert heat shimmered above the tarmac. The air was thick with the tang of jet fuel and hot metal. She sat alone on a crate, half in shadow, half in light. Major Sarah Mitchell, 34 years old, lean, strong in the way that comes from repetition, not vanity. Her flight suit unzipped at the waist, a tank top beneath. Her gaze never left the aircraft in front of her, the A-10 Thunderbolt II, the Warthog, Wraith 7, her bird, a machine that looked less like it was designed than carved, built around its cannon rather than its wings. Ugly to most, beautiful to those who understood. The warplane had scars just like its pilot, panels mismatched, repairs obvious. It had limped home once from a mission nobody spoke about. Since then, it had been grounded, deemed unsafe, too damaged, too risky. Her too. "Major." She looked up. Harkins squinted against the sun. "They need you." The words hung there, not a request, a truth. Sarah's jaw tightened. "SEAL Team 6 in the corridor." He nodded. "Command's written them off. No rescue authorized." Her laugh was sharp without humor. "And you want me to do it? Fly the same canyon that got me grounded last time, the one they swore I'd never enter again?" "They don't want you to do anything," Harkins said. "That's the point. They've given up, but I haven't." Sarah's eyes flicked to Wraith 7. The machine wasn't even cleared to fly. Hydraulics shaky, targeting glitchy, some systems deadweight. But she knew the truth. She knew the Warthog would fly if she asked it to. She also knew what it felt like to be inside that canyon. The turbulence like a giant's hand trying to rip the wings apart. The missile that had almost taken her left side clean off. The strange readings on her instruments that made no sense, even after they pulled the data apart. Something else had been there, watching her, studying her. She had never spoken of it. But Harkins' eyes told her he knew. "Walk with me," he said quietly. They moved toward the edge of the tarmac, away from curious ears. "What do you remember from that flight?" he asked. Sarah kept her gaze fixed ahead. "I went in, got a recon team out, nearly didn't come back, that's it." "No," he pressed, "that's not all." Her silence stretched. Then finally, "I saw something, not Taliban, not Russian junk, something different, too advanced. The readings didn't match anything I've ever seen, I wrote it up. That's when they grounded me, buried the report, took Wraith apart piece by piece, searching for an excuse." Harkins nodded grimly. "They did the same thing to your father." She froze, her head snapped toward him. "What did you just say?" "William Mitchell," Harkins said softly. "We flew together, Desert Storm, best damn pilot I ever knew until the incident, Euphrates Valley. They said his F-15 malfunctioned. No enemy fire, no wreckage recovered, just gone." Sarah's voice was a whisper. "That was my father." "I know." For a moment the world tilted. Her father, a ghost of her childhood, a hero who had vanished into silence, leaving questions without answers. "What does this have to do with me?" she asked, her voice sharper than she intended. Harkins reached into his pocket, pulled out a small device heavy in his hand, a signal detector. "Old, scarred. Project Chimera," he said. "Your father stumbled onto it, same way you did, testing combat pilots under real stress, pushing them to their limits, watching, measuring, experimenting. When he found out, he vanished. Now they've set their sights on you." Sarah turned the device over, feeling its weight. Her throat was dry. "That's insane." "Is it?" Harkins said. "Look at the corridor, how many aircraft lost. Why ground you after a successful mission? Why bury your report? Because you saw it. You saw what they didn't want you to see." Sarah's heart pounded. She wanted to argue, to dismiss it, but the memories wouldn't let her. The strange readings, the silence after she reported them, the way her career had been clipped at the wings. She whispered, "Who?" "James Blackwood," Harkins said. "Ex-pilot. Now he works in the shadows between CIA and military intelligence. Runs what's left of Chimera, chooses the battlegrounds, chooses the pawns." Sarah's hand brushed the scarred fuselage of Wraith 7. She thought of her father. She thought of SEAL Team 6, pinned down and alone. She thought of herself, grounded for the crime of telling the truth. Her voice was steady. "And you think he's using the SEALs as bait, to test whoever flies in after them?" Harkins didn't answer. He didn't have to. Her eyes narrowed. "Then let's not disappoint him." The old colonel almost smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." The desert wind blew across the tarmac. The sun sank lower, staining the mountains in shades of blood and shadow. And for the first time in 2 years, Sarah Mitchell felt something stir in her chest. Not anger, not grief. Purpose. She ran her hand along Wraith 7 again, feeling the scars in the metal. Scars just like hers. The kind that didn't weaken. The kind that made you stronger. But in the back of her mind, one thought lingered. One that cut deeper than the fear, deeper than the risk. If her father had vanished chasing Chimera, would the same silence claim her too? Why was her heart beating faster? The thought of flying again, or the thought of dying the same way her father did? Sarah stood at the edge of Hangar 7, the warthog looming like a relic of another war. Its patched wings caught the last rays of sunlight, shadows stretching long across the tarmac. The maintenance crew had long since given up on it, treating it like a retired soldier too proud to admit the fight was over. But Sarah didn't see a relic, she saw a survivor. Harkins studied her face, his lined features unreadable. "You're already calculating it, aren't you? Fuel, weapons, flight path." Sarah exhaled. "If I were, I'd be insane." "Maybe," he said, "but so were all the pilots who made history." Her jaw tightened. She remembered the hearings after her last mission, the sharp voices demanding answers. Why did you violate orders? Why didn't you disengage when the corridor was declared restricted? They had accused her of recklessness. But what she'd seen in there, no amount of protocol could explain. What if they're right? She asked quietly. What if it's suicide? Harkin's eyes softened for just a moment. Then at least it won't be meaningless. Right now, 8 men are waiting to die. You'll either die with them or bring them home. Either way, that's more than command is willing to give. She hated him for being right. And she hated herself more for knowing she was already committed. The sound of boots echoed across the hangar floor. 3 mechanics entered without a word, their faces grim but determined. They went straight to work, opening panels, running lines, checking gauges. Sarah didn't have to ask if they understood. They knew, and they'd chosen a side. The clatter of tools echoed like gunfire in the cavernous space. The warthog was being woken from its forced slumber. You'll need more than fuel and ammo, Harkin said, handing her a tablet. Topographic maps, weather, intel such as it is. Sarah scrolled through satellite images of the corridor. She'd memorized its shape once: narrow walls, violent winds, tight turns that dared you to blink. But seeing it again now felt like staring into a mouth lined with teeth. 12 miles in, Harkin said, pointing. Natural alcove in the eastern wall. Last reported position of the SEALs. Could be old by now, but it's all we've got. Sarah's throat was dry. Anti-aircraft positions. Confirmed, RPGs for sure. Maybe stingers, positions on the ridges. But the bigger danger is the canyon itself. Downdrafts, blind corners. Even a perfect pilot could get shredded in there. I remember, she whispered. The memory rose unbidden, the turbulence slamming her chest against the harness, alarms shrieking in her ears, and beneath it all that electronic whisper. Something watching, something probing her, something not Taliban. She shut the thought down. There wasn't room for ghosts. Harkins pressed the small detector into her hand again. If Chimera's active, this will light up. But listen to me, Sarah. If it pings, don't react. Don't acknowledge it. Let them believe you don't know. Sarah clipped the device inside her flight suit, cold against her skin, heavy as truth. The crew chief approached, wiping sweat from his brow. Fuel topped, weapons loaded, hydraulics patched as best we can. She's yours, Major. Sarah swallowed. Thank you. He just nodded. Soldiers didn't say good luck when the odds were impossible. Luck was too fragile a thing. The engines coughed, then roared as she powered up the warthog. The cockpit smelled of oil and dust, but beneath it all was something familiar, almost comforting, like the scent of home after too long away. She strapped in, hands moving over switches, her body remembering the ritual even after 2 years grounded. The gauges flickered, most green, a few amber, hydraulics at 92%, good enough. Through the canopy, she saw Harkin standing just outside, one hand raised in salute. His eyes never left hers. She returned the gesture, then pushed the throttles forward. The warthog lumbered onto the runway, stubborn and ugly and perfect. Her headset crackled. Unidentified aircraft, this is Razor Control. You are not cleared for takeoff. Return to hangar immediately. She didn't answer. Unidentified aircraft, this is Colonel Hayes. Major Mitchell, I know that's you. Power down now. That is a direct order. Her jaw tightened. She clicked the mic. With respect, sir, you've abandoned Americans to die. I haven't. Wraith 7 outbound. She cut the channel. The engines thundered. The runway blurred beneath her. And then, weightless, the wheels left the earth. Sarah Mitchell was flying again. The desert unfolded beneath her in waves of gold and scar, villages like pinpricks, roads like veins. The mountains rose ahead, jagged teeth biting into the horizon, and somewhere inside them, the Devil's Corridor. Her heart hammered. Her father had vanished chasing shadows. Would she? The device on her console flickered quietly, picking up nothing yet. The air was calm, deceptively gentle, but she knew the storm was coming. She skimmed low across the sand, hugging the terrain to stay beneath radar. Her hands steadied on the stick, her breathing measured. In the silence of the cockpit, her thoughts intruded. She thought of her father's empty chair at the kitchen table, her mother's forced smile at the memorial service, the way she'd sworn she would never let her own life be reduced to a folded flag and unanswered questions. But here she was, flying into the same silence that had swallowed him. The first jagged peaks rose in front of her. Snow still clung to their tops even in summer. Shadows stretched long down their sides, black veins cutting through the stone. And then the mouth of the corridor. A wound in the mountain, narrow, dark, waiting. Sarah tightened her grip on the stick. The warthog trembled as crosswinds struck. She adjusted without thought, instincts honed by years in the cockpit. She dropped lower, 180 feet above the floor, dangerously close but safer than exposing herself to the ridges above. The canyon walls swallowed her. Shadows closed in. The light dimmed. And the world changed. The turbulence hit harder, throwing the warthog side to side. Sarah fought it, hands steady, eyes locked forward. The walls pressed close, barely 260 feet apart. Her wingspan left less than 100 feet clearance. Impossible for most. But Sarah wasn't most. Her instruments flickered. Warning tones chirped and died. For a heartbeat, her radar scrambled ghost signals, then nothing. Her gaze dropped. The device on her console was flashing. Chimera was watching. Her breath caught. She forced her face calm, her movements steady, as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just crossed the line from combat into experiment. Deeper she went. The canyon twisted, blind corners appearing and vanishing like tricks of the eye. Shadows stretched across the stone like scars. And then movement. Halfway up the eastern wall, she glimpsed figures scrambling into cover. Taliban fighters, weapons glinting. They hadn't expected anyone to fly this low. Her thumb hovered over the trigger. One burst from the GAU-8 and the ledge would vanish in fire. But no, firing now would announce her presence, and somewhere deeper, SEAL Team 6 was waiting. She let the warthog drift past, memorizing the position. If she had to fight her way out, she'd know where to start. Minutes passed, shadows shifted, every second stretched. The SEALs had been out of contact for hours if she was too late. She swallowed the thought. A dark alcove appeared in the eastern wall, exactly where Harkins had said. Was it shelter or just another shadow? Sarah keyed the encrypted frequency. SEAL Team 6, this is Wraith 7. Do you copy? Static. Her throat tightened. SEAL Team 6, this is Air Force Rescue. Signal your position. Silence. Then faint, broken through interference. Wraith 7, X-Ray 6 actual. Authentication Sierra Tango 930. Relief flooded her chest. They were alive. Authentication confirmed, she replied. This is Major Sarah Mitchell, A-10 pilot. I'm here to get you out. A pause, then, negative Wraith 7. No-fly zone, too many birds lost. Who authorized this mission? Sarah almost laughed at the absurdity. Even dying, they clung to protocol. I did. Now what's your situation? The voice came back flat, controlled. 2 wounded, 1 critical. Limited ammo, 40+ hostiles. Ridge lines above. We're pinned. Sarah's hands clenched, 40 against 6. Understood, she said. I'll provide cover, mark your position. Green smoke hissed from the alcove, whipped by the canyon winds but visible enough. And then the device on her console lit up again, stronger this time. Not just passive, active scanning. Her blood ran cold. High on the western ridge, half hidden among rocks, she saw it. Not Taliban, not natural. A concealed installation, antennas, too advanced. Blackwood's eyes. The entire trap laid bare. The SEALs weren't just fighting for survival. She wasn't just flying a rescue. They were all part of the experiment. And the man running it had just found his perfect subject. What would break first, her aircraft, her courage, or the truth they were trying to bury? Sarah circled above the alcove, eyes scanning every ridge, every shadow that could conceal a weapon. The plume of green smoke below was already thinning, shredded by the canyon winds. X-ray 6, she called, voice steady. I have eyes on your position. Begin movement north to the wider section. I'll cover you. A pause, then the SEAL commander's voice tight with strain. Copy Wraith 7 moving now, be advised stretcher case. Will be slow. Her gaze tracked the tiny figures emerging from the alcove. 6 men, 2 carrying a stretcher, another supporting a wounded comrade, the rest moving in protective formation. Even wounded, they moved with the discipline of ghosts. But they were terribly exposed. Sarah banked the warthog in a wide circle, scanning. On the western ridge, she caught the glint of metal. A tube lifted skyward, the deadly outline unmistakable. Missile team, she muttered. Her thumb pressed down. The GAU-8 thundered. The sound filled the canyon like the voice of God. The airframe shuddered, recoil slamming through her chest. The ledge erupted in dust and fire, the launcher obliterated in a heartbeat. She didn't stay to watch. She was already banking for another run. On the eastern ridge, heat signatures clustered. Human figures, weapons, RPGs. Her targeting reticle painted them red. The cannon roared again. Rock and flesh vaporized under the storm of 30 rounds. X-ray 6, she called, breath steady despite the pounding in her chest. Immediate threats neutralized. Keep moving. The reply came through static. Copy, moving. Below she saw them pushing forward, determined, fragile. And then a warning tone screamed in her headset. Missile lock. Damn it. She threw the warthog into a sharp dive, flares spitting from the fuselage. A streak of smoke carved through the air past her left wing, detonating harmlessly against the canyon wall. Fragments pinged across her canopy. The blast echoed so loudly it seemed to shake the stone itself. Her heart thudded once, hard. She steadied. Her gaze dropped to the detector on her console. The lights were flashing wildly now, not just one signal, dozens all around. Blackwood wasn't just watching, he was controlling the battlefield. She forced her face blank, her movements calm. If they thought she didn't notice, maybe she'd have an edge. X-ray 6, she called. Be advised, possible electronic interference in play. Keep comms brief, move fast. Understood. Her teeth clenched. She wanted to tell them more, wanted to shout the truth about Project Chimera, about Blackwood, about her father. But the canyon was a listening ear. Every word she spoke was another card revealed. The SEALs trudged forward, moving north. Half a mile to the wider section, every step a gamble. Sarah brought Wraith 7 around again, angling for another pass. On her radar, ghost signatures flickered, then vanished. Phantom aircraft, deceptions, tricks. But the human enemy was real enough. She spotted another cluster of fighters scrambling to reposition on the ridges. They thought they were hunting prey. They didn't realize they were in the jaws of a warthog. Her finger squeezed the trigger. The cannon roared again, fire raining down. Men fell, rocks shattered. The canyon floor shook with the violence. But for every nest she destroyed, another seemed to appear. Her radio crackled suddenly, but not with the SEAL's voice. Wraith 7, this is Razor Control. You are ordered to cease operations and return to base immediately. Additional aircraft are en route to escort you. Sarah's brow furrowed. Escort. Into the corridor. Command had sworn it was no-fly. No pilot would come in here willingly. Her stomach twisted. She switched to the secure frequency. Harkins, are you monitoring? Static, then his voice grim. I see it. Aircraft inbound, not ours, Blackwood. Her throat went dry. What are they sending? Apache, contractors, his people. Her mind raced. 2 helicopters, sleek and confident, entering the canyon. Their movements too precise, too sure. Pilots who knew this place, who'd practiced it. The experiment was escalating. X-ray 6, Sarah warned. Be advised, inbound aircraft approaching your sector, intentions unknown. The SEAL commander's reply was calm, almost resigned. Copy, we see them. Sarah pulled Wraith 7 into a defensive orbit between the SEALs and the approaching Apache. Her hands tightened on the stick. She couldn't fire first. American markings or not, pulling the trigger on those helicopters would brand her a traitor. But every instinct told her they weren't here to save. They were here to watch, to control, to ensure the experiment ran as designed. The lead Apache's radio crackled, smooth voice professional. Unidentified A-10, this is Firebird 1. You are in violation of restricted airspace. Stand down and prepare for escort out. Sarah swallowed her anger. Firebird 1, this is Major Sarah Mitchell, United States Air Force, conducting emergency extraction of American personnel. Authorization confirmed. The reply was too fast, too calm. Negative, Major, no record of your mission exists, you will stand down. Her stomach turned cold. They already knew about the SEALs, about her. They weren't here to help. They were here to contain. She keyed the secure channel again. Harkins, confirmation. I'm reading their signatures. These aren't regular Army, private contractors, Blackwood's men. Sarah's knuckles whitened on the stick. She switched back to the open channel. Firebird 1, I'm not abandoning these men. If you interfere, you'll be obstructing a rescue under fire. Choose carefully. The silence on the other end was heavy, calculated. Behind her, the SEALs trudged forward, carrying their wounded, rifles ready but useless against the storm gathering overhead. Ahead the Apache hovered, patient predators. And all around, her detector pulsed like a heartbeat, proof that the canyon itself was wired to test her. Sarah exhaled slowly. This wasn't just combat. This was theater. And she was the star. But she would not play by their script. X-ray 6, she called, her voice steady despite the chaos pressing in. Keep moving. Extraction inbound in 15. I'll hold the line. Copy. Wraith 7, moving. She banked hard, lining up her next pass on the ridges. Taliban fighters were still swarming, scrambling for positions. The GAU-8 spat fire. Rock and men disintegrated. The canyon shook. And above it all, the Apache hung in silence, watching, waiting. As if the experiment had only just begun. How much longer could she pretend this wasn't a trap? Sarah's hands gripped the stick, knuckles white. The Warthog's engines rumbled like caged thunder as she banked over the canyon again. Below, the SEALs pressed forward with mechanical discipline, the stretcher dragging behind like an anchor, every second slowed by the weight of the man bleeding out. And above, the Apache waited. Two black shapes against the fading light, American markings, familiar silhouettes, and yet predators all the same. Wraith 7, Firebird 1 called again, his voice calm, almost conversational. You're out of line. Pull your men back to cover and prepare for transfer. We'll take it from here. Sarah's lip curled. Transfer, he didn't even say rescue. She keyed her mic. Negative, I stay with them. Major, the voice came back, patient as a teacher correcting a child. Your presence is non-essential. We have orders. You're jeopardizing the mission. The words tightened her chest. Orders, whose? Certainly not command. No, Blackwood's. This was his theater, his experiment. Her detector pulsed in agreement, its lights flaring like a silent scream. The canyon wasn't just full of fighters. It was alive with signals, probing, recording, measuring her every move. She forced herself calm. They wanted her rattled. They wanted her reckless. Not today. X-ray 6, she called, keeping her voice level. Accelerate if you can. We're running out of time. Copy, the SEAL commander replied, grunting between words. We've got him stabilized, moving as fast as terrain allows. She caught sight of them again, small shadows clinging to the canyon floor, rifles sweeping, every man carrying weight beyond his own. Her chest ached. She'd flown missions before. She'd seen men on the ground, just dots in her targeting pod. But watching them now, knowing the odds stacked against them, she felt the distance collapse. They weren't dots. They were faces. Americans. Human beings trying not to die in a place designed to kill them. And she wasn't going to leave them. The Apache broke formation. One angled toward her left flank, the other holding high above the SEALs. Sarah's breath slowed. "Firebird 1," she said, her tone sharpening. "If you engage my men, I will return fire." Silence, long calculated. "Then you won't fire on friendlies." Her throat tightened, because he was right. If she pulled the trigger, if she unleashed that cannon on a US-marked bird, she'd cross a line no one could erase. And Blackwood knew it. The Apache descended lower, rotors beating the air into submission. Dust swirled across the canyon floor. The SEALs dropped to their knees, covering the stretcher with their own bodies. Sarah's voice cut across the chaos. "Hold your ground, do not surrender." "Major," Firebird 1 came back, smooth as ever, "this isn't surrender. This is extraction. The experiment's over." The word froze her blood. "Experiment," he said it aloud. Rage seared through her chest, not because it was news, but because of the casual way he spoke it, as if her men were lab rats, as if her father's death was a line item in a report. "Not on my watch," she whispered. Her thumb hovered over the master arm switch. 1 second, one flick, and she could end the standoff. But before she could choose, the canyon erupted. From the ridges on both sides, Taliban fighters opened fire. RPGs streaked down, machine guns chattering. The air filled with smoke and fire. The Apache wheeled instantly, not in panic but precision. Their cannons opened up, raking the slopes with streams of fire. Dozens of fighters shredded in seconds. Sarah's breath hitched. The Apache weren't rescuers, they weren't hunters, they were cleaners, eliminating witnesses. The SEALs scrambled for cover, dragging the stretcher into a shallow depression. One man screamed into his comms, but the signal drowned under static. Sarah's chest constricted. This was the script, the chaos, the rescue that was. She saw it so clearly now, Blackwood controlling every piece, the Taliban as disposable actors, the SEALs as unwilling test subjects, and her the wild card. She slammed the throttles forward, diving low, skimming so close to the canyon floor she felt the turbulence grab her wings. The GAU-8 barked. Fire ripped across the ridges, cutting through fighters scrambling to reload. Dust and blood filled the air. "X-ray 6, she shouted. "Move now, use the chaos, I've got you covered." "Copy." The SEALs burst from cover, sprinting forward, stretcher carried like a coffin. But the Apache swung wide again, not firing on the SEALs, not yet, just circling, hurting, keeping the trap intact. Sarah's detector pulsed harder, faster. The signals weren't random anymore. They were converging. Her stomach sank. She realized what Blackwood wanted. He wanted her to turn on them. He wanted her to cross that line. If she opened fire on the Apache, he'd have proof. Sarah Mitchell, rogue pilot, threat neutralized, chimera preserved. If she didn't, the SEALs would die in his experiment. Her hands shook on the stick. She thought of her father. She thought of his last mission, the one they said was equipment failure. She thought of her mother, burying an empty casket. What would he have done? Her chest burned with the answer. He would have chosen the men. The Apache swooped lower, cannon swiveling toward the SEALs. Sarah's teeth clenched. Not today. She yanked the Warthog into a climb, then rolled hard, lining up behind the nearest Apache. Her reticle locked. Her finger hovered over the trigger. And for one heartbeat, she hesitated. If she fired, she'd be court-martialed, labeled a traitor, forgotten like her father. If she didn't, 6 men would die. Her finger squeezed. The GAU-8 thundered. The Apache disintegrated in a storm of fire, its tail spinning free, its rotors shredding against the canyon wall. Flames roared skyward, black smoke curling into the air. The second Apache veered hard, breaking off. Its pilot's voice screamed through the comms, a mask of professionalism torn away. Firebird 2 engaged. Repeat, Firebird 2 engaged. Warthog hostile. Sarah's chest heaved, her heart slammed. There was no going back. X-ray 6, she called, forcing her voice steady. Keep moving. I'll deal with the other one. Roger that, the SEAL commander replied, his tone clipped but alive. And Major, thank you. She swallowed hard. No time for thanks, no time for regret. The surviving Apache swung wide, missiles armed, fury in its movements. A dance between predators in a cage of stone. Sarah pulled Wraith 7 into the fight, the Warthog groaning under the strain. Warning lights flickered across her panel, hydraulics struggling. She ignored them. Her detector pulsed so hard it vibrated the cockpit. Blackwood was watching, recording, every decision carved into his files. She didn't care. Let him watch. If she was going to burn, she'd burn saving men, not abandoning them. The Apache locked her, a missile streaked. She rolled, flares bursting from her fuselage. The canyon walls rushed up, too close, too tight. The missile tracked, then slammed harmlessly into stone. The explosion rattled her bones, showering the cockpit with fragments. Sarah steadied, brought the Warthog back level, her eyes narrowed. The Apache circled again, cautious now. It had seen what she was capable of. She tightened her grip. Your move. Below, the SEALs kept running. The stretcher wavered, but they didn't stop. Not once. And above them all, the experiment tightened like a noose. How long could a single aircraft fight, the weight of a machine designed to crush her? Sarah's breath fogged the inside of her mask, shallow and fast. Her hands were steady on the stick, but inside her chest trembled. The Warthog wasn't built for dogfights with Apache inside a canyon. It was slow, heavy, blunt, but it had teeth. And she had no choice. The surviving Apache circled wide, hovering high above the SEALs. Its rotors churned the air into chaos, scattering dust across the canyon floor. Missiles glinted beneath its stub wings, hungry for a lock. Sarah pulled Wraith 7 into a climb, engines straining as the canyon walls pressed close. She leveled off just below the ridgeline, skimming so tight the paint seemed ready to scrape against rock. The detector on her console pulsed harder, lights flickering like a heartbeat in distress. Blackwood was still watching, recording, every maneuver, every hesitation. Let him watch, she thought. I'm not flying for him. Her eyes found the SEALs again below, tiny figures dragging themselves north, burdened by the weight of the wounded. They were still alive because she'd crossed the line. She would keep crossing it. X-ray 6, she called, voice firm. Status. Static crackled. Then the SEAL commander's strained reply. One casualty worsening, moving slower. We've got contact on the ridge, can you suppress? Stand by. Sarah banked hard, rolling Wraith 7 on its side. Her eyes locked on the eastern wall, a line of fighters advancing, RPGs slung across their shoulders. Her finger squeezed. The GAU-8 barked fire, shredding stone and flesh alike. The slope disappeared in dust and smoke. Clear, she called. Keep moving. Copy, moving. But her warning alarm screamed again, sharp, insistent. Missile lock. The Apache had her. She dropped the Warthog low, hugging the canyon floor, throttles wide open. The aircraft groaned as turbulence buffeted it from every angle. A missile streaked overhead, slamming into the canyon wall ahead. Stones shattered, raining debris across her canopy. She ducked instinctively, heart pounding as chunks of rock clattered against the fuselage. The Apache was pressing her, confident, aggressive. It had the advantage in maneuverability, in position, in everything that mattered. Except will. Sarah yanked the stick, rolling hard, climbing again. She broke above the ridgeline, sunlight flooding her cockpit, momentarily blinding. The Apache surged after her, rotors biting air, cannons spitting tracers. Rounds slammed into her left wing, tearing through aluminum. Warning lights flashed amber, then red, hydraulics dropping. Her jaw clenched. She forced Wraith 7 level, ignoring the shudder through the frame. The old warbird screamed under the strain, but it held. "Come on," she whispered. "Not yet, not now." Her targeting reticle danced across the sky, hunting for the Apache. It darted left, then right, weaving through the canyon like a viper. Her thumb hovered over the trigger. But before she could fire, the detector spiked. Her stomach twisted. The signals weren't just watching anymore. They were interfering. Her instruments flickered. The reticle jumped. Radar blurred into nonsense. Blackwood wasn't content to observe. He was tilting the fight. Her teeth clenched, coward. She flew by instinct now, trusting eyes and muscle memory over electronics. She banked hard, rolling the Warthog into a narrow gap between ridges. The walls blurred past in streaks of stone. The Apache followed. Her breathing slowed. She felt the old rhythm return, the one she hadn't allowed herself since the last time she flew this canyon. Her body knew the dance, even if the instruments lied. The SEALs' voices crackled faintly in her ear. Wraith 7 were pinned again, machine guns to the west. Her head snapped down. She saw the muzzle flashes, the ridge alive with fire. And she realized the trap. The Apache wasn't trying to kill her outright. Not yet. It was hurting her, timing its shots to force her away from the SEALs. If she broke off to save herself, the men below would be slaughtered. Her pulse hammered. She pushed the throttles forward, not happening. The GAU-8 roared again, the cannon's vibration rattling her bones. The ridge exploded in fire, fighters cut down mid-charge. Her plane shook violently. A warning tone shrieked. The Apache's cannon raked her fuselage, rounds punching holes through her right wing. Smoke poured from the damage. Her heart lurched. She was bleeding, and the Apache knew it. "X-ray 6, she called, forcing calm into her voice. "Keep moving, don't stop. I'll handle this." There was silence on the other end. Then the SEAL commander, his voice raw with disbelief. "You can't fight that thing alone." Her reply came without hesitation. "Watch me." She rolled Wraith 7 into a dive, engines howling. The canyon walls screamed past. She skimmed so low the dust kicked up behind her like a storm. The Apache pursued, relentless. She cut left, then right, weaving between jagged outcroppings. Her breath slowed, her body remembering what the canyon had taught her before. This was no ordinary fight. This was survival. And maybe it was something else. Her detector pulsed violently, lights flashing red. She felt the weight of it pressing into her chest. Blackwood's gaze. The same gaze her father had felt before his silence swallowed him. For one heartbeat, Sarah almost faltered, almost wondered if she was destined to vanish the same way. But then she saw the SEALs again below, dragging themselves step by step, refusing to quit even as the canyon tried to devour them. And she remembered her father's chair at the kitchen table, empty but not forgotten. She would not vanish. She would not be silenced. Her eyes locked on the Apache. She climbed hard, pulling Wraith 7 into a brutal ascent. The G-force pressed her into her seat, her vision narrowing. Her body screamed. At the peak, she rolled inverted. And dove. The Apache blinked beneath her, caught for one instant in her reticle. Her finger squeezed. The GAU-8 thundered. The Apache jerked violently as rounds tore into its fuselage. One rotor blade spun free, cartwheeling into the canyon wall. The helicopter spiraled, trailing smoke before slamming into stone. Fire blossomed. The canyon echoed with the explosion. Sarah's chest heaved. Sweat stung her eyes. Warning lights flashed across her console, but she barely saw them. She'd done it. The Apache were gone. Her voice cracked the silence. X-ray 6, enemy aircraft down, you're clear to move. The reply was instant, filled with grit and relief. Copy Wraith 7, moving. Sarah banked the Warthog into a protective orbit above them, smoke trailing from her own wounds. But she knew this wasn't victory. Because her detector still pulsed, stronger than ever. And somewhere, unseen in the labyrinth of stone, Blackwood was still watching. Still waiting for her to make the one mistake that would break her. How much punishment could one machine, or one person, take before they broke? Sarah's cockpit smelled of burnt metal and smoke. Warning lights blinked in harsh red, a chorus of alarms she forced herself to ignore. Hydraulics failing, fuel leaking, the right wing bleeding power. But the engine still roared. The Warthog was alive even if wounded, just like her. Below, the SEALs pushed on. Their shadows stretched across the canyon floor, bent under the weight of the stretcher. She could see the rhythm in their movement. Lift, step, drag. Lift, step, drag. A pace born not from strength but from refusal to quit. And above them, Sarah circled, battered but unyielding. X-ray 6, she called, voice steady despite the rasp in her throat. Status. Still moving, the commander answered, his breath ragged. Wounded man critical. One more hit and he won't make it. Sarah's throat tightened. She glanced at her fuel gauge, dropping faster than it should. She didn't have long either. Her detector pulsed again, harder, faster. Chimera was closer. She looked up at the ridges. Too quiet, too still. No fighters, no RPGs. The silence wasn't mercy, it was calculation. They were letting her burn herself out. Her radio crackled suddenly, the voice smooth and familiar. Not Firebird, not Hayes, something colder. Major Mitchell, the voice said, you've done well. Her blood turned to ice. She knew that voice without being told. James Blackwood. She didn't reply. Her hand stayed steady on the stick, eyes scanning the canyon. The voice continued, calm and deliberate. Your father thought he could beat the system too. Do you know what that got him? Her jaw clenched. Silence on her end. Blackwood chuckled softly. It got him erased. No medals, no legacy, just a name struck from the record. And you, Sarah, you're following him step for step. Her throat burned. She wanted to scream, wanted to demand answers. But she remembered Harkin's warning, don't acknowledge them. Don't let them know you know. So she stayed silent. Defiant, Blackwood said, almost amused. Just like him, but the experiment isn't finished. You've shown courage, you've shown sacrifice. Now show me what you'll do when the price is higher than you can pay. The signal cut. The canyon was quiet again. But Sarah felt the weight of his gaze, pressing down harder than the mountains around her. X-ray 6, she said, her voice tight but controlled. Keep pushing north, you're close. Copy, the commander replied. She looked ahead. The canyon widened slightly half a mile up, enough space for a helicopter to attempt extraction if one dared. That was their only chance. But she knew Blackwood would never let them walk out that easily. Her alarm screamed again, not missile lock this time. Mechanical, hydraulic pressure plummeting. She checked the gauge. Her stomach sank. She had minutes left before the Warthog became a coffin. She pressed the mic. X-ray 6, listen carefully. You're going to reach the clearing ahead. Once you do, mark with smoke. I'll draw whatever comes off you. Get your wounded out no matter what it takes. The reply was instant, sharp. Negative, Wraith 7, we don't leave you behind. Her throat caught, their loyalty cut deeper than any wound. But she forced steel into her voice. This isn't about me, it's about him. Her eyes flicked to the stretcher. Get him out, that's an order. Silence, then copy. Her heart ached. The Warthog groaned as she banked again, lining up on the ridges. She saw them now, shapes moving, weapons glinting. Blackwood's trap tightening. Her thumb pressed the trigger. The GAU-8 thundered. Stone erupted in fire. Fighters vanished in the smoke. But her cannon jammed halfway through the burst, choking on its own fury. Lights flashed red across her console. She slammed the panel with her fist. Come on, not now. The weapon stayed silent. Her last line of offense gone. The warthog trembled, wounded and weary, but Sarah refused to let go. She dropped lower, engine screaming, using her presence alone to shield the SEALs. Every pass she made, every turn, was another second bought for them. And every second brought her closer to collapse. The SEALs burst into the clearing at last, their figures framed by jagged stone. Smoke flared green, curling skyward in the fading light. Sarah's chest tightened, relief mixed with dread. Because she heard it then. The low thrum of rotors. Not rescue, not salvation. But the next wave. 3 helicopters crested the ridgeline, not Apache this time. Black Hawks, painted black, no markings, silent but for the beat of their blades. Her detector pulsed so violently it rattled. Chimera had arrived in full. X-ray 6, she called, her voice sharp. Inbound helicopters, do not approach. Repeat, do not approach. Roger, the SEAL commander answered grimly. The Black Hawks descended, rotors whipping the smoke into tatters. Side doors slid open. Figures in black leaned out, rifles raised. Not rescuers, kill teams. Sarah's heart hammered. Her cannon was dead, her missiles spent. She had one weapon left. Herself. She pulled Wraith 7 into a climb, ignoring the shrieking alarms, the shuddering frame. The old warbird rattled, metal groaning as if begging her to stop. She whispered into the cockpit, "Just one more time, please." Her eyes locked on the lead Black Hawk. She dove. The warthog screamed as it dropped, engines roaring, smoke trailing like a banner of defiance. The Black Hawk swerved, rotors biting air but too late. Sarah's wingtip clipped its rotor. Metal tore. The helicopter spun, slamming into the canyon wall in a blossom of fire. Her warthog staggered, rolling, barely clinging to control. Warning lights flared. She yanked the stick, leveling out by sheer will. The other Black Hawks broke wide, regrouping, hesitant now. Sarah's breath came in ragged gasps. She bought a few more seconds. X-ray 6, she called, voice shaking, "This is it. Get your wounded ready. When the next bird comes, take it, don't look back." Her throat burned with the words she didn't say. "Don't wait for me." Below she saw them kneel by the stretcher, hands steady despite exhaustion. A flare shot upward, marking their desperate hope against the darkening sky. And Sarah Mitchell circled above them, her broken warthog trailing smoke like a dying star, knowing the end was close. But if it came, it would come with her still fighting. Because she refused to let Blackwood write her story the way he'd written her father's. What was louder, the roar of the engines or the silence of the choice she knew was coming? Sarah's cockpit shook with every heartbeat of the warthog. Smoke seeped through vents, the acrid sting of burning wires filling her lungs. Warning lights strobed across the panel in frantic red, but her hand stayed steady on the stick. The warthog was dying. But she wouldn't let it die yet. Below, the SEALs crouched in the clearing, weapons braced, their wounded man laid flat, chest barely rising. Green smoke twisted into the darkening sky, a fragile beacon in the canyon of death. And circling above them, the 2 remaining Black Hawks moved like vultures, patient, controlled, watching. Her detector pulsed violently, a rhythm that matched the hammering in her chest. Every signal meant Blackwood's gaze, not just observing, directing, adjusting, pushing the scenario toward one inevitable conclusion. She was the subject, the SEALs were the variables, the canyon was the lab. And he wanted to see if she'd break. Her headset crackled, that same smooth voice slid through, calm as poison. "Major Mitchell, you've proven resourceful, determined, even reckless. Do you know why your father failed? Her jaw clenched, but she didn't answer. Because he believed sacrifice was enough, Blackwood continued. He thought dying for his men made him noble, but noble doesn't win wars. Controlled choices do. Her throat burned, she forced her voice even. Controlled by who? Men like you. A chuckle, cold, hollow. Controlled by necessity. We test so we can predict. We predict so we can win. Your father was a pilot. You are an equation. Her hands tightened on the stick. Then let me give you a number you didn't predict. She yanked the warthog into a dive, streaking low over the clearing, passing so close she saw the seal's head snap upward. Dust and smoke billowed in her wake. The Black Hawks pulled back, momentarily cautious. The old warbird rattled, alarm shrieking, but it held together. One more pass, one more chance. X-ray 6, she called, her voice sharp, be ready to move. On my mark, you take the shot. Doesn't matter what bird comes in, you take it, copy. The commander's reply came through grit teeth, copy. Her eyes locked on the Black Hawks above. They hovered at the edge of the canyon's widening mouth, waiting, calculating. Not rescuers, not even enemies in the old sense. They were instruments of chimera. Her detector screamed again. The lights spiked, then flattened, as if measuring her pulse in real time. Blackwood's voice returned. If you fire on them again, Sarah, you'll be branded a traitor. Everything you fought for erased, just like him. Her breath caught him, her father. She saw him in flashes, a young man in a flight suit, a hand ruffling her hair before a deployment, the empty chair at the table, the folded flag. She whispered not to Blackwood but to herself, you erased him, but I remember. And then she rolled. The warthog's battered frame screamed as she brought it into a steep bank, nose locking on the nearest Black Hawk. Her reticle danced, systems failing, but her eyes didn't need instruments. Her thumb hovered over the trigger. The GAU-8 stayed silent, jammed, dead. Her breath hitched. No cannon, no missiles, just a wounded, failing machine. And her. She thought of her father again, not the myth, not the silence, the man, the one who had once told her when she was a child afraid of thunderstorms, you don't fight storms, you fly through them. Her jaw set. If Chimera wanted a test, she'd give them one they couldn't predict. X-ray 6, she said, her voice steel, mark the target with tracers, I'll finish it. Roger, the commander replied. From the clearing, rifle fire cracked upward, streaks of green tracer rounds arcing toward the nearest Black Hawk. Not enough to kill, enough to mark. Sarah Dove. The warthog's nose dropped, engines screaming in protest. She aimed not with her reticle but with her soul, lining up the tracers with her flight path. And then impact. Her left wing clipped the Black Hawk's tail. Metal shrieked. Sparks exploded. The helicopter spun, rotors slicing air into chaos before slamming into the canyon wall. Fire blossomed, swallowing stone and shadow alike. Sarah's warthog reeled, spinning, alarms howling. She fought the stick, muscles straining, vision narrowing. The old bird leveled barely. Smoke poured from both wings now. She gasped for air, chest heaving. One Black Hawk left. Her console flickered, fuel critical, hydraulics near zero. The SEAL commander's voice crackled, sharp and desperate. Wraith 7, you're not going to make another pass. Break off. We'll handle it from here. Her eyes burned. Negative, I didn't come this far to stop. Blackwood's voice slid through again, calm, measured. You're killing yourself for nothing. Even if you succeed, they'll erase you. Your name, your record, your life. You'll die a ghost, Sarah, just like him. Her hands tightened on the stick. She thought of the SEALs. 6 men dragging one stretcher across stone. Faces she would never know, names she might never hear. She thought of Harkins, saluting her on the tarmac, eyes burning with hope he'd buried for too long. And she thought of her father. Not the silence, not the erasure, but the dignity. The way he'd chosen to fly anyway, knowing it might be the end. Sarah's voice cracked as she spoke, not to Blackwood, not even to the SEALs, to herself. Then let me die loud. She pulled the stick hard, throttles wide, the warthog screaming in protest as she lined up again. The final Black Hawk hovered, weapons bristling, rotors tearing the air. It waited, daring her. She dove. The canyon blurred. Smoke filled her cockpit. Her body pressed into the seat with crushing force. She aimed her broken warbird straight at the shadow above. And in that moment, she knew this was no longer about winning. It was about refusing to let them write the story for her. Would this be her last flight, or her last defiance? The warthog shook like a dying animal beneath her, engines screaming in protest, smoke pouring from both wings. Sarah's grip on the stick was iron, her body straining against the G-force as she dove. The canyon blurred around her, walls streaking past like stone specters. Ahead the last Black Hawk hovered, dark, silent, waiting. It didn't fire, not yet. Because Blackwood was watching, measuring, waiting to see if she'd break herself against the test. Her detector pulsed wildly, lights strobing like a heartbeat in crisis. Her voice was steady though her chest trembled. X-ray 6, when I hit him, move. Don't stop, don't look back, do you copy? The SEAL commander's reply was raw, jagged. Copy, Godspeed, Wraith 7. Her breath hitched. The words weren't protocol, they were prayer. Her father's voice echoed in memory. You don't fight storms, you fly through them. She leveled the nose, lining up on the Black Hawk. The warbird's frame rattled, alarms screaming, every gauge flashing its death sentence. But her eyes never wavered. She was the storm now. The Black Hawk surged forward suddenly, side gunners opening fire. Tracers streaked past her canopy, chewing through air and metal. Holes ripped across her fuselage. One round shattered glass inches from her head. Her heart pounded once hard. She pushed the throttles forward. The warthog roared. Her wingtip scraped the canyon wall, sparks showering into the twilight. Metal tore, but she held the line. The Black Hawk filled her vision. And then impact. The world exploded in fire and steel. Her left wing tore free, spinning into the abyss. The Black Hawk disintegrated, rotors scattering like shrapnel, its fuselage consumed in an inferno against the canyon wall. The blast hurled her warthog sideways. Warning lights went dark, gauges dead, smoke choking the cockpit. The stick went slack in her hands. For a moment, silence. Weightless. Then the nose dropped. The canyon floor rushed upward. Her breath caught. She yanked the stick, desperate, muscles screaming. The plane responded weakly, groaning as if every bolt begged her to let go. Not yet, not here. The ground blurred closer. And at the last instant the warthog leveled, barely, skimming the canyon floor so low the dust swirled in its wake. Sarah gasped for breath. Her body trembled, adrenaline flooding her veins. She was still alive. But her aircraft was broken, dying, every control sluggish, every warning light dead. She had minutes, maybe seconds, before gravity claimed her. X-ray 6, she rasped into the mic. Last bird down, you're clear, extraction now. The SEAL commander's voice cracked with disbelief. How the hell, Major, what about you? Her eyes stung, she forced the words out steady. Doesn't matter, get him out, that's the mission. Silence, then understood. She saw them below, green smoke still curling upward, their flare cutting through the twilight. A second later, the distant echo of rotor blades. Real ones this time. American, not Blackwood's. Her chest tightened, relief and ache all at once. She bought them just enough time. Her console flickered once, faint, before dying completely. The detector, too, gave one final pulse of light before going dark. Blackwood was gone, or maybe he was still there, smiling in some hidden room, recording her last breaths. She didn't care. She pulled the stick, angling the warthog toward the canyon's edge. Her father's canyon, her canyon now. The engines coughed, sputtered, the frame shuddered. Her breath slowed. She thought of her father again, not the mystery, not the silence, but the man who had once lifted her onto his shoulders, who had told her that courage wasn't loud, wasn't about medals or flags. Courage was a choice. And now she chose. The canyon opened ahead, wide and endless, the horizon glowing with the last fire of the sun. Her body eased against the seat, her eyes softened. And for one heartbeat, she allowed herself to feel proud. Not of the kills, not of the defiance, but of the dignity. The SEAL commander's voice cut through one last time. Wraith 7 will never forget. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. She whispered into the empty cockpit. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. The Warthog's engines gave their final roar. And Sarah Mitchell flew into silence.